Okay, Adam, you think we're ready to go? Okay, all right, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time and start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Adam, would you mind taking us through our roll call?
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Ms. Willard?
Here.
Ms. Hoffa?
Here.
Ms. Stanfield?
Here.
Mr. Sturdivant?
Here.
And Ms. Layton?
Here. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is consideration of the minutes for our January meeting. They should be in front of you, and they would have been sent to you as commission members prior to today's meeting. Take a look at them, and if anybody would like to offer a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from 1/25/22.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Aye. Thanks, Brittany. Okay, we have some approved minutes. All right, we will head on to agenda item number 3, which is a public hearing for case number 01TA 2022, is the Madison Village PUD text amendment and site plan amendment. Just as an overview, as Adam gets set up here, we in our agendas for consideration of a public hearing, first hear from Adam. He has time to present. We then have time for the petitioner to add comments for about a 10-minute period. We then head to public comment or remonstrance, those who want to speak or ask questions or speak against the project, and that's a 10-minute period. We then have time in our agenda for our government officials. There's a 5-minute time frame for government officials to share their thoughts. And we do have time for the petitioner to give a rebuttal, so to respond to some of the comments that might come up, and that's a 5-minute period. So we're going to be governing to those timelines as outlined in our bylaws. All right, that said, Adam, would you mind kicking us off?
Here.
All right, good evening. For the record, I'm Adam Zaklakowski, the Planning and Building Director for the town of Fortville. Case before you tonight is the Madison Village PUD text amendment and site plan amendment, and I'll go through what the nuances are between those two different actions. So the applicant MBAH Partners is submitting a PUD text amendment and a site plan amendment regarding the Madison Village planned unit development. And so the project is planned to be located at 215 South Madison, just west of the CVS Pharmacy out here. So the first set of items that they're looking for is to modify that planned unit development document, which was the set of zoning regulations that were unique to this property. And so anytime a developer wants to change those, it has to go through the same process that the original zoning went through. So they're looking to, the main change that they're looking to do is to increase the allowable building height from 45 feet to 53 feet. And since they're taking on that action, it makes sense to update the concept building elevations in the PUD. And it makes sense to update the concept plan or the map. And they are also looking to add crane board as an allowable building material. And then the second part of the request is, if you recall, this body also functions as our design review board. Back in June, I believe, of last year is when you all approved the concept site plan the concept building elevations and the concept landscape plan. And those are being amended as well. So it made sense just to fold this into one item for discussion. So for the PUD items, you're simply making a recommendation to council. And then they're seeking approval, or essentially you could say conditional approval on the other items, subject to council approval of the PUD amendment. So as you can see, here's an aerial photo. We can always refer back to this if we need to. You can see it's on the site of the former Deaton's Waterfront Services dock company that has relocated to another site in town. And here's just another oblique aerial of the property that we can always refer back to if need be. Quick overview on the zoning. Of course, this is PUD, planned unit development, which just means that it has special unique zoning regulations again. And it is surrounded by what we call straight zoning, or things that are right out of the zoning ordinance, like community commercial to the east, residential 3.5 to the west. All right. So the first part of the request is to as I mentioned, to increase the height allowance from 45 feet, which was the maximum in the PUD. And the reason that we're doing that is to have a pitched roof instead of a flat roof, what the developer is looking for in order to reduce costs on the project. As the developer will probably mention in more detail, the project, because of inflation and COVID pricing, the costs have gone up, as well as the availability of the commercial style membrane roof, which has them looking to do this pitched roof and a slightly narrower building. So they did, I think I'll mention it coming up, but they did reduce the unit count as well from 58 to 50 units. And here's just a rendering of what the building would look like as you're driving down Broadway. Okay, so as I mentioned, since this PUD is being amended, it's an opportunity to insert a revised concept plan. Here was the existing one that was in the PUD. And then here would be the one that it's replaced with. So the senior housing that is off to the west is essentially the same. I think the unit count on that dropped by a few in order to meet the parking needs. It went down to 48 or 49 units. And then the site that we're looking at here today, the parking on the west side of the building is changed to parallel parking, and then the main parking field is in the back. So Ohio Street, which will be a private street that goes north-south through the development, would act almost as a public street, although technically it'll be private, but it'll feel the same way as you traverse the area. As I mentioned, crane board is a material change that they're looking to add. It's not vinyl siding, but it's not hardy plank siding either. It's somewhat in the middle, and I believe the developer brought some samples of that to show you. This is an example of that product in use, I believe, in Ohio. Then in terms of the site plan amendment, this was the version that you approved back in June of 2021. And then with the modifications here that they're looking for, this is what they're seeking approval for tonight. So above ground detention has been added on the north side of the building. And the building becomes slightly smaller at 50 units instead of 58. So those are really the two changes in addition to the roof. And then lastly, as part of your scope of the design review function. The concept landscape plan here is what you approved back in June of last year. Some reason that slide may be missing, but I had sent that all to you. It's the same with the detention pond on the north side of the building, narrower and a bit smaller. This is an example, the detention basin that'll be on the north side of the building is actually what they call a dry basin, so it's not going to be a wet pond. This was an example that the developer had me look up for a project out in Dayton, Ohio. And this was kind of the idea that they had for that basin to do some rock, to do some landscaping, and have some grass area, so it wouldn't just be an unsightly pit, so to speak. In terms of the community response, all public notification requirements have been completed by the applicant. We have heard some remonstrance from Mr. Bob Farrell. In a nutshell, he's concerned about the nature of workforce housing and also concerned about low-income units. Last night, the project was taken to town council for their input. To summarize the comments that came up, they wanted me to take a look at if the fire department is okay with the additional height. They asked, some members had asked, can we do a parapet wall and a sloped roof? Third item would be, a member said that he preferred a flat roof with a parapet and no slope roof. So our typical way of processing these requests is that the ordinance, in this case, we're doing a text amendment to the planned unit development ordinance. That goes to first reading at town council. Then it goes to plan commission for your recommendation, and then it goes back there for a second reading. They decided not to hold first reading. There were 2 yes and 2 no and 1 absent. So you can still proceed with your review. There's nothing under the law that would prohibit that. It would just, when it goes back to town council, they have to hold a first reading and a second reading. And it'll probably have to be most likely at 2 separate readings. So based on that, my recommendation is that the request will make the project economically viable and will not have a negative impact on the high quality nature of the project. I think this last part is worth mentioning is that, at least in terms of the roof situation, some people may prefer a flat roof for good reasons, some may prefer a pitched roof for good reason. But in my professional judgment, going to this pitched roof, it doesn't negatively impact public health, safety, or general welfare. So I would say my recommendation would be to issue a positive recommendation on this PUD text amendment, and then approve the concept site plan, concept elevations, concept landscape, but subject to one condition, that a detailed landscape plan shall be developed for the detention basin. Right now, it simply shows they took a very conceptual look at it, just threw a few trees around it, but we want to make sure that that is an amenity to the site and not just a stormwater detention facility. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them now, or I can address them later.
Thorough as always. Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam?
Did you hear the developers here tonight?
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. Have there been any subsequent projects approved adjacent out of reasonable reliance upon the PUD standards we approved already? So is there anything around there that we could reasonably rely upon this in place?
No.
Where, anywhere in that area where we have required conformance with the underground storage? Another project.
Say that again.
So we're converting from underground storage to like a pond type of setting. Is there anywhere else where we have required or have approved underground storage? On Broadway, probably.
I think possibly the Elite Beverages project may have underground. I would say that underground detention is infrequent in our environment. It's typically done in more urban environments. And of course, the benefit of doing it is that you're consuming less land for stormwater above ground. The downside with it is it can become expensive. And I think Pete Schweiger, the developer, can explain what some of those cost escalators have been.
Have we made any changes to the parking ratio? We already made the combination when previously approving. Any changes to parking ratios?
No, so the ratio that we used is the same in the PUD, so the new site plan meets that. And then I just wanted to clarify too, you'll see there's, because I know Bob had mentioned it and I already saw it in some of his paperwork, so I want to head off this question in case it becomes confusing, but. So this document, in the corner, it says, I think the date wasn't updated. So the date says June of 2020, but as we can see, this plan has been updated. This matches the plan you're looking at here tonight. So that is for purposes of zoning. It shows area B is future development. It shows a concept layout, part of the zoning purview for the senior housing to the west, and then of course the workforce housing to the east. So think of this as really the concept master plan for the whole project. We kind of had to take a step backwards to update that. And then what this is showing, this is the actual site plan itself for what they're building in this phase. So just the workforce housing. The area to the south would remain undeveloped, and then the area to the west would be just grass, and there'd be some trees along the perimeter. So I hope that may at least address any potential questions that might come up in that regard.
Thanks, Adam. Any other questions for Adam? We have 10 minutes on our agenda to hear from the petitioner, the developer. So if you'd like to come up, we are, our attorney is virtually participating. We'll do a full swear-in, but for this evening, please state your name and spell it. We have a new scribe.
No problem.
So thank you very much.
Pete Schweigerat, SCHWIEGERAHT, with MVAH Partners, located at 9100 Center Point Drive, Westchester, Ohio 45069. Thanks to everyone for your time tonight. It's good to be back. You may remember we last came through, as Adam mentioned, with the final site plan review of phase 1 of Madison Village. It started with a rezoning of the property into a PUD. It was 3 phases: a workforce housing phase using the Stellar funds that the state was allocating for the Stellar Award. Senior housing phase, which we applied for, unfortunately weren't able to receive the award of yet. We're still hopeful to bring that forward. And then a future phase to the south here coming up to Broadway. It would be mixed use, commercial and residential together. So everything in phase 2 is the same. Everything in phase 3 is the same. The only things that we're really changing as of now are some details related to the site plan approval with phase 1. And so while there may be conversation about other items tonight, and I'm happy to try to answer the off-topic questions, the reality is we're really talking about a couple modifications that we're requesting to an already approved site plan to help with the situation that we're in today. And when I mentioned that, it's the COVID world. I'm sure many of you have heard or on the news about COVID inflation, whatever sector it's in. But certainly construction has taken it on the chin the greatest over the last 18 plus months. Just in the last 12 months, we're seeing around a 30% increase in cost in construction. That varies from materials. It started with just lumber, and now lumber is going bouncing back and forth, but then you got all these other materials that are becoming scarce, difficult to find, expensive to find, etc. So as we presented this case to the state and went and requested funding from the state over a year ago to the time when they awarded the development and we could take it forward and get it bid, we're experience substantial cost increases. The state's aware of this. The state in this funding round, when they funded this development, did around 20 developments. Every one of them's experienced the same challenges. The state's even set up some programming to work with the developers who were awarded to fix the situation. So that includes some state programming, along with some unit reduction, along with some potential value engineering. And when I say value engineering, I want to be clear, we're still providing 100% accessible building. We're still providing a building built to the National Green Building Standards. Building that's going to be the very highest quality residential building in your community, from a certification standard, an energy rating standard. None of that's going away. We're talking about some very minor changes to help with materials that are scarce and to some extent don't exist right now, as well as doing much more conventional detention, to providing some materials actually that are a little more cost effective, but actually provide a stronger building envelope and improve the energy efficiency of the building. So I guess I'm going to go through those few items there. And first and foremost is the building height, and that really plays into the elevation. And what you're seeing here now is a flat roof, rubber membrane with an insulative layer was the original proposal. That material is really unavailable right now and is supposedly not going to be available for 9 to 12 months. Some contractors even stashed it away. Those who find it, you're paying double, triple, quadruple the price. When it's available still is uncertain. So it's not even necessarily just about the cost in some of this. It's about, will that material be available when we need it? Because as we close the development, we say to the state, we're going to have it complete by a certain date. And if we don't complete it by that date, there's all sorts of ramifications and challenges. So we need to know we have a pathway to completion by a certain date. And so using a gable roof, which during the original process, we showed 2 elevations, a flat roof and a gable roof. Some preferred the gable roof, some preferred the flat. We elected the flat roof to try to stay lower because we were pushing height envelopes from what's in your community. We wanted to make sure the site was getting used to its fullest. It's a great site. So with that though, I will clarify, the fire department, they have no issue with the gable. It doesn't create any, their apparatus is well equipped, 8 feet. It's not even living space, it's attic space. It's space that just sits up on top. The literal elevation of the building, the 4 stories all around, it's the same. The only difference is it's now sitting, would you mind switching that other elevation here? So this is the front facade per se, facing out to Madison. And you can see over 2/3 brick, almost 3/4 brick on the front facade facing out to Madison. That's all the same, matches as it was over here. Only difference is in the roof. But one thing I will point out in the roof is we got a long building, but it's broken up. We don't have some sort of barrack, lineal, single line roof. You've got these variations. It's popping up, it's popping down. It keeps the building feeling smaller. It keeps the building feeling as if it's a series of vertical elements. So we are trying to be thoughtful. This is the same building we have down in Lawrence, and I encourage many to go down and see it. It's 10 years old. It looks beautiful. The difference is it's a 3-story building down there. So from my perspective, yes, adding 8 feet really means nothing to your fire department. 8 feet, I don't know that we're even going to see the difference from the ground if you're trying to eyeball 8 feet over the size of this building. So we think it helps us assure timely delivery. It helps us stay within budget. And if we can't get within budget, the project simply, we have challenges to can that even happen. And ultimately, it's actually a longer life roof. It's a 30-year dimensional shingle on a gabled roof. That's going to last well longer than the rubber membrane roof. You're going to be maintaining and servicing that after year 10. So there's a lot of reasons why there's some benefit to it. There are a few challenges that come along with that. I'll just go ahead and point those out. Is it does push the condensers down to the ground. We've already with Adam, just as we're going to be doing an extensive landscape plan in our detention basin, we're going to be doing screening so that those HVAC units are screened, most likely with landscaping, in some cases, maybe with some small decorative fencing. We're going to make sure they're not viewable from the streetscape. And again, if I send you down to Lawrence, see 1 Penrose, they're down on the ground, same format, screened well. I can assure you're not gonna go down there and go, boy, these air conditioners are messing up this building. So I don't think we're gonna deal with the kind of minimal challenges that create with a good landscape plan. So that's first step one, elevation, an additional 8 feet of height in the building. Step two is yes, conventional detention, every site needs a detention basin. Conventional detention is an above ground basin. We did have hopes of doing underground detention to optimize the use of the green space. In past cases, this goes back to the same COVID challenges. In the past cases, to maybe do underground detention might have added a $75,000 cost to what you might expect your detention budget to be. In today's world, with whatever materials they're using, you're basically doing this all in concrete pipe and stormwater underground. Those materials have gone up 3-4 times. It's now a $300,000 plus variation in cost. So you got hundreds of thousands of dollars in roof, you got hundreds of thousands of dollars with underground safe detention. Being able to make these changes helps us work with the state to bring all the economic budget in line. Again, we are committed that detention basin will become a very decorative area. We've dealt with this before. A lot of times out of the pipe, we'll do kind of a faux dry creek bed, and you put some of the grasses and the various native plantings in there. You build some rock into the edges of the basin, landscape plantings and trees, and really make it look like it's a green little more passive recreational area, open space. So we will treat it right. We will screen the condensers right. The only other difference is then, yes, the material. The crane board is a composite material glued onto a molded insulated back. So it actually brings additional energy efficiency. It brings another insulative layer to the building envelope. Because it's molded onto that insulated back, it's also extremely durable. It's actually, in single family residential product, has a lifetime warranty. In commercial application, it has a 60-year warranty. I mean, name me any product out there in today's world that has a 60-year warranty. Because it's also molded onto the back, the composite material doesn't have the expansion contraction ratio that traditional vinyl does. So it doesn't expand, contract, and get that warping that long spans vinyl can get. It's also glued on to that insulated back, that styrofoam back, which then also doesn't allow it to expand and contract because it's glued on. It's actually about it's again, National Green Building Standard certified, has a lifetime well beyond hardy plank. Hardy plank, you will actually see that bowing because it is a thinner material. I will say in either case, what we do with our building is we have no projection in this building that's any longer than 25 feet. Because if you stay in short spans, even vinyl siding doesn't do that because it doesn't have enough lineal footage to do that expansion and contraction and warping. So we're not going to have any issues with either material, but the reality is this is a better, longer lasting material. It's an insulated material. It's actually helping improve our energy standards. And it does create some cost effectiveness. We will not be using the screen the sample has here, but this kind of shows how the material is glued onto a molded, fitted, insulated styrofoam back. It's just an additional layer. This isn't in addition or instead of, but in addition to all of our conventional insulation. So that doesn't peel away. It holds it all in. So that is our final hope. Little height elevation does change the way the building looks. A little change to our detention basin, and the hopes of using this material combined with the unit reduction gets us to where we need to be, where we can take this forward. So we're excited about moving forward. We're hopeful that that could happen as early as the middle of March, late March. But this is certainly an important stop to help us kind of bring everything in line. So greatly appreciate your time and considerations on this. We wouldn't be back if it wasn't for real reasons. And while it seems so anecdotal to hear COVID-related inflation, I've never had it impact our industry like this. And it is real. And these are real solutions to address that problem right now. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have time in our agenda for those who would like to ask questions, make statements, or have remonstrance, which means speak against the project. We do have 10 minutes total, although we do love civic engagement, so we'll monitor that pretty closely. And thank you for your civic engagement this evening. So we'll start front row, going to back, taking volunteers to come up. And we do have a total 10 minutes. I think we have Alex on the line. Alex, if you just wouldn't mind keeping being the voice about God for us and keeping time for us. And as you come up, would you mind stating your name and spelling it for the record, just so that we have that in our notes. Also, I think if you have something new to share, I think that's most useful to us. If you've heard someone else from the demonstrators or those who are commenting ask a question, perhaps using your time to ask more questions is best for our consideration. Okay, so let's start first row. Any questions here? Okay, all right, let's go second row. And by the way, we will have time for government officials to have any comments, so we will not take your time from general comments over here. Okay, second row on this side. Okay.
Yes.
Come on up. And please state and spell your name for the record, and
Okay.
we'll get started timing now.
Okay, very good. My name is Bob Farrell. I live close to Fortville. I'm a lifetime Fortville area resident. I only live like a mile from town as it is right now. I'd like to address basically all of the items, but Mon will take care of the easiest first, and that is the crane board. And I'd like to stand in front of you and certify that I know absolutely nothing about it. And all I do know about it is that it is cheaper than what we thought we were going to get. And I only know that because it was indicated it was an economic decision about that. So I'll leave that to somebody else, the experts. I understand the town board is going to have somebody dig in a little bit and make sure that it's everything that's going to do a good job for us. Okay. And then another one kind of sort of easy here. Adam touched on it, and that was the little packet I gave you was Exhibit A. Okay. The thing about, and the objection is you can see written right on it there, is that this is not a current print. And they admitted that. But how long are we going to have to go with the illusion that there are senior properties being considered here tonight and going forward? We have asked for a number of meetings, I'll say safely 3 meetings, okay, that we've asked that this be updated to the point, and he's right, it says 6/20 of 2020. And all they've done is just change this and change that. And as professional as they appear to be, it seems to me like we should say, look, if we're going to put our stamp on this, on something, that's what it needs to be. When we don't have that concept in front of us, the print on the back of that, which was up there at one time this evening, is much more accurate. And I don't know why it was not put forward as the concept. It doesn't have any senior housing on there, and I think we would be much better served to be accurate in what it is we're being asked to do and what it is we're certifying that it's done. And so that's your guys' call. If you, I mean, I would never be comfortable signing a significant contract with a print that was absolutely outdated and had no accurate rendition of what was actually going to be performed. I think it's noteworthy to point out that MVAH Partners is not a charitable organization. They are a for-profit company, and they're just basically combined in construction, conceptualization, control of the product, and then the management of what the occupants of the building are going to be. Okay, that's the for-profit world. Mr. Schweighardt has a decision, his people have a decision to make. Instead of coming to us and asking us to take all of or some of the problems that the project is facing, that the whole world is facing, asking us to take lesser from what we had agreed on originally, and that goes to the siding, but it also goes to the height of the building, getting rid of flat roof and going to a pitched roof, basically causing the PUD to be elevated by 8 feet. Well, 8 feet is another floor. We had a lot of trouble, not believe it, but all of us had a lot of trouble accepting the 45 feet, because the 45 feet, and Adam, you correct me if I'm wrong, contemplated 3 stories. You see the on the insert you got there with the PUD contemplated 3 stories and a pitched roof. Okay, that's how you get to 45. Then we did a trade-off, and we said, and I have no problem with it. Basically, I don't, is that we took the extra 10 feet and we made a floor out of it. But we compensated for that by keeping a flat roof. Now, coming back, and I don't know what the savings is going to be. My estimate is it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $500,000 to affect the changes that we have here before us. A lot of you work for for-profit companies, okay? You have good times and you have not so good times. I've never had a time when I have a $12 million project that 10 million of it is paid for by someone else. Tax dollars. And that's what we've got here tonight. And if there's not enough money to pick up what we have been sold and what we approved and what we bought, if you will, if there's not enough money, then I say, let them make that decision. If they don't want to go forward with the job because there's no profit in it, that's their call. We shouldn't sacrifice anything that we've struggled, labored to get to this point. Why should we be asked to do anything? I personally think that 53 feet is too huge for the area. We don't have anything else in town that's even close to that, except for the elevator, and that's, that's another matter. But it just seems to me like we could easily wait for the 45-foot roof. We're not in a hurry for the project to be done. Is that correct? I mean, do we have like lines of people waiting for us? This is an unusual situation because we're recipients of basically an opportunity that's been given the MVAH people. Okay, I grant you, we have a lot of control over what the product's going to be, but we're not in a hurry to get this thing done by the end of 23, which is a requirement of the Stellar project, the round that they were accepted in, the 2021 round does require it to be done. Let them reapply, and Pete has said repeatedly every time that we're together, he says, we will apply for senior. I take him at his word. Okay, and the senior awards are to be given out this year on November 17th. Okay, I didn't make it up. I just found out. Okay, so I see nothing wrong with us keeping what it is we bargained for in the beginning. Let the whole cycle go on. It's only 9 more months, okay? And let's see if they get the senior housing, and then let's start this thing on a right step with the right print, appealing to the right clientele, workforce housing. That's what we've all agreed with. Yeah, I mean, I know the town council has, and let's stick with it. Without being obstinate about anything, let's just do it right. I just can't imagine a $12 million project being completely held up over $500,000. That's not much. That's not much money. Like I said, you've got $9.5 million of it already covered by others. I understand it can go higher than that, close to $10 million. I just think the ratio here, it honestly is in our favor, just to say, no, we want you to have underground storage. We have to have a little bit of green space for these people, for the occupants of it. We want them happy, right? We want them happy. We want them to have little puppy dogs run around. And this open collection pond is going to take some of it away. I have no idea. I haven't studied that to say what it is. But in the process of finding things out, if you look at that insert that I brought to you, look at the yellow highlight there. This represents the 10 projects that MVAH has that I was able to find. Okay, and if you see down at the very, very bottom, the average size community that this goes into is 81,000 people, 17 times the size of Fortville. For us,
The time has expired. 10 minutes has passed.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
10
Alex.
minutes is expired.
So, Mr. Farrell, that is the full time that all remonstrants get. So if you wouldn't mind wrapping up in about 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Please do. Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so the same chart has it clear that all 9 of the 4-story units that we found, when you look at them aerially, they have no pond, all the way down. Also note that 8 of the 9 4 stories are for seniors. Okay, so we're there. And another thing is that as of this morning at about 10:30 this morning, don't hold me to the exact minute of that, I talked with Mr. Deaton and asked him, is there anything solid on the 1.6 acres to the west? And he said, no. And I said, what are you saying? Will you take bids on it? And he said, yes, I will take bids on that property. I don't feel comfortable unless the MVAH people tie this property down and give us some kind of a comfort zone here. And I also asked Mr. Deaton about the 3.2 acres to the south. He said, yes. He said it's available. Do you have any questions at all? Oh, come on. They've got to be
Questions?
working.
No. Okay, we will give some opportunity for others in attendance to also share their.
Thank you
comments.
so much.
Anyone else from the row over here? Okay, we're gonna flip over to this side, like at a wedding. Okay, we're gonna go back here. Any comments or questions? Okay, we'll take hand raising now. Come on up. We'll just stay on this side. Okay, if you wouldn't mind, state your name and spell your last name for us.
Hi, Jason Stein, S-T-E-I-N. I live over in the Windstone district, and I've only really seen what we started to talk about publicly with this development. And we know that it's going to be for affordable housing and things like that. Do we have a market price range for what this is going to be for rent in the area once they're completed?
We will put that in as a question rebuttal, if that's okay with you, meaning the petition will come back up and we'll pose that question. But okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I got my glasses on, but I can see this. Okay, come on up, please. State your name and spell your last name for us.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Hurlbutt, H-U-R-L-B-U-T-T. I own and live at 102 North Main. That's the old Goldman furniture store. I think you guys deserve some accurate information, not to be disparaging, sir. But first thing is that the rubber roof, the roof on my building has been there since 1985, and I'm just now replacing it. Okay, with proper maintenance and cleaning, the roof will last longer than 30 years. Okay, there has been increases in the price. It took me 4 weeks to get the materials for my roof, and we're just waiting for weather. Okay, and that's a fairly substantial roof there. The other thing, the crown siding is marginally better than back vinyl siding. Just to clarify, I'm a retired architect and retired construction. So I know something about what I'm talking about. The ground siding is marginally better than vinyl siding. It's highly susceptible to impact damage. It does have a tendency to delaminate from its backing, and there have been at least 3 cases in the United States where mold and mildew has grown behind it between the vapor barrier and the foam. Okay. And then I have just one quick question. How long after the project completed does this particular group have ownership of the project and manage the project, or manage the project? Thank
we
you very
have
much
that.
for your time.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Hobart, and we will pose that question in rebuttal. Okay, still taking hand raising this side. Come on up. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record for us.
Charles Cooper. 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 49 years old. Been here for 44 of them. And what I don't necessarily like about the project, just as a quick whole, is that Adam, God love you, it's your job, but it's not your job to put his slides, this gentleman's over here, up there. And when I see a 12 by 15 sitting back there, that does nothing for me as a town member. When I can't see anything, I can't help you with anything. So I would suggest that when you have meetings, other than just what you're going to go over, please have those as presented to people who come in here so that we know what you're looking at. That is butt, to put it politely. That does nothing for me. I'm not in favor of the project. I've been here, like I said, for 44 years. My dad has never lived out of the town. He's 74 years old. This project, Adam, again, God love you. Nathan, Amanda, is it Amanda?
It is.
Thank you. Jason, I don't like you. He and I went to high school together. Scott knows I don't like him. Seriously, this is a show. This is just a way to get somebody to do something for money. And the only money that I see it going to is this company right here. Sorry. That's all I got to say.
Mr. Cooper. Anywhere from this side? Okay, how about over here? All right, we do have participants who are online. I cannot see you all, but we're gonna let you come off mute if you do have any questions, comments, or remonstrance. Alex has his hand raised. Alex, we're over time?
No, I raised that during the remonstrators time and just noticed that I needed to put it down. Sorry about that.
I just noticed you had it up, so pay back. Okay, anybody on the line have any questions they would like to come off mute? All you have to do is indicate by coming off mute and we'll take you into testimony. Okay, seeing none. We do have time in our agenda to hear from elected officials. So anybody who is in attendance here, we have a 5-minute time frame that Alex is going to be that voice of God in time for us. And I see Becky, who's usually in our back row, who is in second row. So come on up, please state your name for the record and offer your comments.
Becky Davis, I'm on the town council. I have a couple questions for Pete again. I want to confirm that the amount of the project is 12 million. The amount of grants and all money they're receiving is 10 million. And I again want to ask him who is going to make up the difference in the rents from the 30%, which is $400, to the cost, actual cost, which is $800. Is it a HUD program? Is it another government program? My concerns are, it was always presented as workforce housing. We know that. Everything we saw was workforce housing. Now it has gone to 30 to 80% of the area median income. That is low, very low. and extremely low income. I don't have anything against people who don't make a lot of money. I just am not sure we need another complex like that in town. We have Village and we have Stonecrest. I'm concerned about the 4 stories. There's gonna be 1 elevator, no balconies. I think that is a safety issue. I'm concerned about them taking away the green space for the above ground basin. I thought it was gonna be a pond, and my concern about that was kids navigate towards the water. But they're saying it won't have water standing in it. Ohio Street has been taken out of the exhibit they showed us, but they did not give us a new legal description. And as I recall, Ohio Street was in the original legal description. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Any other elected officials here live in our audience? Okay, any participating online, elected officials or government officials? Just come off mute. We'll look for you here in a second. Here we go. Okay. So that will conclude the public comment and government officials. We're going to now go to a part of the meeting where we have rebuttal. So if we perhaps can address some of the questions that have come up, I will keep track to make sure we're getting through everything. I'll let you go through your agenda, but then.
Okay, do you have the questions written or do you like that? Should I just start?
You start where you want. I'll keep you on track. Okay,
Okay,
go
I
ahead.
think the first one I heard was what are the rents, and that will vary depending on your income. We think 1 bedrooms are roughly around 700, 2 bedrooms are roughly around 900. And again, some residents might be able to access that at a slightly lower rate. We are workforce housing. We applied for the housing tax credits under the workforce housing designation as defined by the state of Indiana, Indiana Housing Community Development Authority. We applied for their funds through the Stellar Plan as prescribed by the Stellar Plan. That program is 80% AMI and under, which is what we presented as it was brought through. Yes, the state does require us to do various AMI targeting. It's a requirement of the program. It's traditional, standard. It's in every one of those 17 developments they funded that year. So that is all consistent with as was presented. We showed council some data last night that showed thousands of families, thousands of households in the market area that meet those criteria. We did the income, a single parent household with 2 children, $60,000 a year. That's $30 an hour. And we're able to serve that family with affordable rent. Trustee asked a question about who supplements the rent. No one supplements the rent. The 30% rents, the resident does pay less rent. That's the amount of rent we get. We don't get a rent subsidy to pay the difference. Doesn't happen. So they pay less rent because they are in a different bandwidth, but they pay their own rent. No one's subsidizing it. We don't have a self-sectioning contract, a project-based sectioning contract. It's just not part of the project, but that's really not about what we're here tonight about, more about the comments that were made about the 3 materials or the 3 changes. Just because we're saving some money doesn't mean a material or a product or a roofing system is cheaper. This roof is going to have a longer lifespan than a rubber membrane roof. It's going to be easier to maintain. It's going to be easier to operate. Yes, it is a little higher. I personally don't feel 8 feet is such a compelling height that it's that drastic of a difference. You may feel otherwise, and I certainly support whatever decision you come with, but it's a big help to the project. The material I showed you, it is warranted longer than fiber cement board. It doesn't need painted. It's more insulated. Again, cost doesn't mean cheap. So we save some money. I would have presented this material and prefer this material other than as we were negotiating, proving quality, everybody knows fiber cement. Oh yeah, that's great. So rather than trying to explain how this is even better, to me, it wasn't worth it. Now it is because we're running into these challenges. It is a higher quality material. It's got a higher energy efficiency, lasts longer warranty. The detention pond, maybe I'm the silly one who got aggressive with what we thought we could do and proposed an underground detention basin, because I think if I would have brought this forward with an above ground detention basin, no one would be having issue with it, because everybody knows we have to detain and is used to how that's dealt with. It's common. So yes, we did strive. We do try to strive above and beyond. We're in a market environment that constrains that. We've shown examples of how it can be done right and landscaped right. We're committing to all of those things. It's really about those three issues. Again, our economics, I don't necessarily are your business, but because we are asking for these things and they are saving us money, I'll be the first to confess, we're contributing to the solution as well. We're going to be contributing over 400,000 of our own developer fee to the solution. So it's a little bit of unit reduction, it's a little bit of some value engineering, it's a little bit of additional resource from the state, all that packaged together, our skin in the game to get this to add up. We haven't lost a year of life in any material we proposed. Development's going to go looking just the same and feeling just the same too, I think. So I'm hopeful you'll accept these changes, and again, happy to further answer any questions if you have them.
I need a speed round to stay up here. Okay. All right. And what I mean speed rounds, like just
Yes, no problem.
easiest one. All right. How long will you own the?
We are a long-term owner. We own our very first asset built over 28 years ago, and just 6 years ago completed an $11 million renovation of it.
What's your minimum hold time that's required? To replace it?
I don't know if there's an official minimal hold time. Most affordable development of this state's tax credit development would be held for either 15 or 30 years. The 30 years is the compliance period of the funding we're using.
Got it. And a lot of times the obligations upon the petitioner to bring maybe blow-ups or bigger renderings of items. Is that something you'd be willing to do in the future so that the public can-
Absolutely. And I think in the end, Adam was able to blow that up a little bit. And I think that was, I knew it was going to be on the big screen, but by the time the big screen's got the picture, it's all, so I think it's a matter, we'll zoom in and I could have printouts, but my 11 by 17 printout versus that screen seemed like the better solution.
I mean, it's a community,
Sure.
right? So I think you see the interest. So
Yep.
It's kind of buy-in piece, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a safety issue, the fact that there's no balconies or this was a vanilla?
No, we meet all fire codes, all circulation codes. It's a 100% accessible building, 0-step entry throughout. The elevator's got generator backup. It's got all the proper stairwells and access points.
Is the basin a attractive nuisance for children?
No, I mean, it's a dry basin, number one, so even if they're in it, there's not any real risk or danger to it. I mean, every residential neighborhood built in your area has a detention basin somewhere. I confess, as a kid, I went and played it, especially when it filled up with water. It was really fun. Never mind the lightning and all that. But so, yeah, it will be dry, and we'll landscape the edges. We'll put that faux little creek bed that we talked about and try to make it an amenity. We'll probably put a couple benches in. It's kind of surrounded by a sidewalk, and so we have some benches that kind of look into the green space there.
Do we need a new legal description because of Ohio Street?
No, I mean, that's all been the same, and you can confirm with your staff, probably best to answer that one.
Okay. Why is senior property still showing?
Senior property should still show. There's still 3 phases of development as part of this master plan. Workforce housing, phase 1, senior housing, phase 2, the future mixed-use developments at phase 3. What Adam asked us to do is when we updated the section of phase 1, he said, will you please also superimpose phase 2 so that everybody knows that that's still coming at some point. So the simple fact that you see it in there is Adam and our intent to say, yes, that didn't go away. Here's what it is. And by the time we re-engineered it onto the survey, just as this phase went down 8 units, that senior phase is going to go down 8 units. We just simply couldn't fit as much in as we hoped.
Okay. What is the price per unit for development at this time? 'Cause I know
If we're talking a total all-in cost of around 12 million, which is an accurate number. 50 units, what is that, 220 a unit?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the math with my little calculator here.
240.
Thank you, 240. I thought 220 sounded like 240 a unit, all in total development costs. That's soft and hard, so that's not physical construction costs. Instead.
Any changes to sidewalks, access, easement, or traffic with this new plan?
No.
And if you have to rank in your hierarchy of what you need the most or like the most, gable, pond, vinyl, 1, 2, 3.
All of the above. I mean, the economics and our ability to take this back and get it in line takes them all. The ones that are most valuable are the detention basin and the roof.
All right, before I hold any more questions, our members of the commission, other questions?
Is the detention area is still usable green space as long as it's not flooded?
Right, and so, you know, a typical detention basin holds water once or twice a year and significant events. Otherwise, yeah, it's a dry little green space and we're gonna landscape it.
Do you have some type of an agreement in place still with Deaton for the rest of these properties?
So we have a verbal agreement with them that would allow us, and we certainly got to consummate that into a site control document, to resubmit the senior phase. And so certainly if somebody comes along and offers $1 million more for the site than me, he might change his mind and go with somebody else. But yes, our intent is in the July round, we'll submit that senior deal. The southern portion of the site, we've never had site control on that. I can't speak to his plans whatsoever, then other than to say, the way it's zoned allows for mixed use, commercial and residential multifamily.
I have a quick question
Yes,
for you.
sir.
Are you familiar, you said you do have a project over in Lawrence, correct? Is that right on 56th Street, if I'm not mistaken, on Lee Road?
Yeah, it's kind of right there. I'm trying to think of the name. It's at 56 and where you take that street back to the golf course.
Yes.
And,
So right down the street from there, Cityscape did a development where they have a combination of the flat roof
Mhm.
and
That's
the,
adjacent to us.
are you familiar with that
Yes.
development? Have you thought about possibly entertaining something like that so we could still keep to the facade that we originally approved?
Yeah, that was a question that was asked last night from one of the council members, and we have investigated that in the past. And unfortunately, sometimes by adding the gable and the parapet, you end in a scenario where you almost add cost because now you're dealing with drainage systems behind a parapet wall that come down through the building differently. It's not a solution that's going to save us any money. And so if we were pushed to that, we would probably just stick to a conventional flat roof scenario where we would do our best to make the economics work under those situations.
And then one more question, as far as the luxury vinyl siding, because that's basically what the product is, would we be using their vinyl trim for the windows and corners and things where we're seeing trim details here now? Would
That
be-
is a question I'll have to confirm. I don't know the answer to that one.
If you use the hardy plank instead, if you stuck with that plan, how are those windows trimmed out? With vinyl or
Well, it's a vinyl window. I don't know about the trim.
it's all trimmed in wood? Right. And then with this crane, it's all gonna be trimmed in what I've seen as a layout is a vinyl product.
With the crane material.
Right.
Have you considered any other cost saving measures that you did not present to us?
Many,
That you want to disclose as well?
nothing that we felt either created impact or met the spirit. There was discussions about the road out front is kind of streetscaped in a very streetscapey way, and we thought about that would be some way, you know, it's not a conventional street or streetscape, it's got extra cost to it. One thing to point out is we are really setting the base for this master plan. We're bringing the road through and in. As mentioned earlier, the outlot to the north, the senior housing site, completely pad ready now. It's going to be surrounded by new access drives, new parking. That's a lot of this infrastructure is really going to help us bring the next layers of development to the site. And, we're certainly excited about that and certainly excited about being part of it. So I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered all your questions, if there were more there.
More? Okay. Cool. Looks like we're good on rebuttal if you've shared everything that you need.
Thank you.
We always head back to Adam. So any more questions from the commission members to Adam? Adam, do our design standards for this area allow for either the gable or the flat roof?
Yes, it would allow for either. So under the conventional zoning, if they didn't have this special PUD zoning, and let's say it was commercial, the maximum height is 45 feet or 3 stories. And they spell that out in the zoning ordinance as such. And the PUD, there's no mention of stories, it's just 45 feet. So if you can fit 4, so be it. But in either case, some communities measure height differently, frankly. Some go to like the midpoint of a pitched roof, some go to the top. In our case, our ordinance is to the top of the pitched roof. So that's where the 8-foot difference would come in.
How many PUD amendments have we processed since the inception of our Fortville?
I think this is the only one. I would say that PUD amendments in other communities that I've worked in where they've done a lot more PUDs, they're common. So it's not uncommon to go through this procedure. It's just relatively new here.
Yeah.
But as part of it, it's if the amendment, if what they're trying to do is substantial enough, it may require plan commission review and council review, or it could be considered, administrative change. It's not a material change. Obviously, in this case, we felt that the height and the change of the overall look of the building going with the pitch roof, even though the height is only 8 feet, we thought it was a change enough that frankly I wasn't comfortable making that decision. Let's let the decision makers do that.
Thank you. Other questions for Adam?
Yeah, I have one. So should the plan board here approve the height change? Is it just changed for this planned community, this plan development only, or is that?
Yes, just this
Okay,
one.
just for this one?
So that means that that phase 2 would come through the whole process on its own.
Well, it's for this whole PUD. So the way it's written right now, it'd be 53 feet to all 3 phases. Certainly, if you wanted to tailor that to, or recommend tailoring it to this phase, you could certainly do that, but it's just a blanket 53 across the whole Deaton property.
Okay, other questions for Adam? Typically, at this point in our agenda, after hearing all of the testimony, we entertain a motion which opens us up for discussion. So if anybody would like to offer a motion, it would be best probably if we handle the PUD and the modifications separately, and the PUD first. Thank you for taking us here. And we take these in total, 1, 2, 3, and 4 as one motion. Is that right, Adam?
Yes, you can do it that way,
All right.
but we don't have to.
Oh, we don't have to. We don't have to. So if anybody would like, if anybody has a motion making mood okay, to get us started, please do so.
We're going to go in kind of individually or condense a couple of things. Because I'd like to discuss a couple of things in a little more detail. If anyone is thinking along the path I am, I would make a motion to approve the modifications number 2 and 3 as submitted, because there's not significant change there.
Does that include the pond? That's the pond.
The detention, yes.
Okay, 2 and 3 is
The building elevation, the crane board is separate, something I want to talk about. So the crane board is not included in 2 or 3, correct?
the elevations of the roof. No?
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
It would be an elevation.
Yeah.
Okay, then I don't know. There's some things we need to
I
talk about.
recommend, I think you're on the right thought process, is that the elevations, again, they're
It's a combination of the
Yeah,
cladding as well as the roof.
I don't think they actually show
Top
They don't
left-
show the materials on that.
Top
elevation.
left-hand
It's a
corner.
complete cladding change. If you look at it from a larger standpoint, I mean, you're going from more of a board and batten look or an ephes look, if you will, from the original plans that we were submitted to what they're asking for now with more of a lap siding feel for the entire structure.
I mean, the top left says the exterior finish legend, so I think we have to consider the elevations.
Would it be okay if I make a comment as far as?
Certainly. It'll help us make a motion.
One of my concerns here is if you look at what we originally approved, I was a part of this commission when we first saw this, but I see why it was approved. It's a very nice looking building. It's very classy. And I think it would be a nice complement to that sector. What we see here is it's night and day. I mean, I think with this roof structure, it just gives us a completely different look and a completely different building. And in all honesty, I don't think it still has the same appeal that we kind of have outlined in our overall grand plan for the town. So I think that's something we definitely need to take into consideration. I mean, if you simply drive down 56th Street and look at some of the differences in the apartment complexes and their apartment complex with a pitched roof as opposed to the ones without, there is a big difference. The ones without, they look much nicer and much more bright.
So let's start with maybe, let's work from the bottom up. Grassroots. Anybody would like to make a motion? Let's take it individually on number 4.
I motion to deny the use of the crane board.
Okay, there's a motion to deny the use of the crane board as an allowable building material. Is there a second?
There is, like,
Okay, motion is second. Let's open for discussion.
So my thought process on the crane board, I'll start,
Okay.
is while I see what you're saying, Pete, about the benefits of it, but I feel like we're opening ourselves to at what point do we stop accepting a vinyl product? Because that's something we've distinctively been against, is a vinyl product. So I fear opening that door for future use, specifically on that one product. And that's me on that. That's one thing.
I'd like to make an additional comment on that. If that's okay.
Please do.
I personally feel that if we had a residential development that came to us for approval and they asked to use that particular siding material, we would deny it. Yes, and I have seen it used in commercial applications, but it's typically in areas that are in more of a, they're not as urban or as, let's just put it this way, you're not gonna see this product used in Fisher's Farm. And I feel like a lot of our guidelines and where we want to be as a community is heading in that direction.
So we've approved a vinyl product because adjacencies were vinyl on a multi-family. It was
in one instance.
one instance in the 2 years that, or 3 years, I forget how long. So, okay, so I think it's in one instance we approved it, but it was because it was completely surrounded by other product. It's over on the north side. I don't-
Fisher's Village, Fortville, Village Apartment.
North side tucked in. Yes, yes. And that was a clear, there wasn't any replicability of use of that product. It was the only time we approved it. Okay. So that's our discussion. Any more discussion on the planning board?
Well, one thing that occurs to me that I probably should have asked, but it didn't come up at the time, but it sounds like you've had some experience with it. It seems like this is a newer product. So while we talk about, lifetime warranty, we don't know what the life is unless, has this been installed for 30, 40, 50, 60 years in other applications to this point that we know that it's going to last that long?
Adam, Tina? Or
Well, it's basically what we refer to in the residential world as luxury vinyl siding.
Okay.
So its main composite is vinyl and they use other things in it. He has some great information on it. I'm not saying it's a bad product.
Yeah.
But as you saw in his sample, I mean, it's vinyl siding, the way it's installed, the way it looks.
Now, I do appreciate that there is, again, it is a better vinyl siding. It's got the
Yes.
insulation value and all that. But after install, it's, the naked eye is not going to know the difference. It still looks like vinyl siding.
What happens when it fades out?
Exactly.
My main thing is I don't like the trim because while that may be sturdy, based on this information, all the pieces and parts that go around it just look like regular.
So what we have in front of us is solid core system crane board. It's type 666 and 7 in the base wondering. It's just a product description from the manufacturer. Okay, do we have enough information to run a vote on the crane board motion? You okay? All right, all those in favor of the motion, which means no crane board, indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstained? Okay. Take us back. Are we going, still going grassroots up, updated concept plan, which would probably take us into the realm of the pond detention?
So item 3 contains the detention pond,
I believe so.
and that's it. That's the one change we're looking for in item 3.
Correct, in the slightly smaller building.
Okay,
Oh, it's slightly smaller building. Okay.
so to get the ball rolling, I would make a motion to approve change number 3 to the concept. It changed it. Now I can't read it.
Oh, sorry.
Heck, what if I didn't memorize it?
Concept.
Item 3, update the concept plan and map with proposed changes.
I will second.
Okay, discussion on this.
So
I
we're
think it's-
focusing particularly on the drainage basin change from
Under the building.
from to drainage. Yeah.
It's a shame we're losing some of the building, but it doesn't create space.
And while it would be nice to have the playground or whatever was there, we're still in a we're in an urban town setting where most houses are on very limited green space anyway. So there's not a lot of, the expectation is I take my kids to the park. Yeah, yeah. I go to Landmark or I go to Memorial Park and we play on the playgrounds there. What's that?
Excellent parks with continued
Yes.
renovations. They're looking.
Absolutely, yeah. I
Right.
love the new slides. So, so that's kind of the expectation living in the R3.5, and we're right in that district. So I don't think that's a deal breaker.
Yeah. I mean, we do have pocket parks that are put into our PUD standards, but I don't believe with this square foot or this acreage that would be 105%. Okay, any other discussion? The motion is to approve number 3, which is updating the concept plan, which includes approving the detention pond basin and the smaller building. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay, abstain? Okay, that motion carries. We're gonna do elevations last, because it's a combination of a couple of things. So why don't we go to the allowable building height, 45 to 53? Any motions on this?
Wouldn't those be the same though, as far as the updated concept of the elevations? Because the elevation's gonna change if we accept that. We're going from a flat roof and that look to this look. So
Yeah.
That's pretty significant.
Well, perhaps what we do is we don't have a specific vote on the elevations because it's more of a outcome of our votes on 1, 3, and 4. Would everybody agree with that? Okay, so the building elevation should follow whatever our votes are on 1, 3, and 4. We will not have a specific. Alex, we're not going to vote on 2. Is that okay?
That is fine.
Thank you. Okay, all right, so let's discuss PUD modifications. Number 1, 45 to 53. Anybody want to make a motion?
A motion to deny the increase of the allowable building height from 45 to 53.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been a motion, a second, to deny the increase in height from 45 to 53. What discussion might we have?
I think it's all subjective. I like the pitched roof better. And I've heard from several people that, and it goes both ways. It's purely a thing. And the aesthetic of what pleases your eye. I don't have a problem with either one. For some reason, opposite of you, no disrespect intended. That building looks neater to me than that.
I guess my thought process on it is knowing that this was going to be a cheaper escrow from a building standpoint, this was the building that they should have initially got us to approve. Now I almost feel like we've kind of been bait and switched here a little bit.
That's,
And under any other circumstance other than what we've seen with building labor costs, I would agree. But
But
I
I
feel
think,
like it's been justified to some degree.
but I also think that there's the argument that, these construction prices, being in the real estate world, I mean, this is something we've been suffering through for 18 months, and they were a lot higher 8 months ago than they are today. And those are going to change. I mean, we haven't broke ground on this project yet. and We're already asking to dumb it down.
So I'm more of a procedural kind of gal, and the procedurally second bites at the apple when there perhaps is reasonable reliance on previous PUDs and setting that up is just is unique and aesthetically. I'm not going to have a preference on colors or looks, but I think it's more procedural. I think that's a concern of ours on this. I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I was just thinking that, because you talked about, if we go down that corridor, 56th Street, we could tailor this potentially to have some specific to this phase. And then you have some variability in height and elevation and all of that for higher PD. So that we would be looking at, in phase 1 here, we're dealing with COVID. In phase 2, phase 3, we may not be. And so then we don't pigeonhole ourselves into a pitch roof for a higher elevation for the other ones, but maybe we make an allowance given the unique situation that we're in.
Is there, whose aesthetics, is there a problem with having multiple different looks?
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's the, I don't know, I, for your preference.
Yeah, I don't know if you want the pitch building it in the back and then the flat roof up front. Not really sure. That's for smarter
If
person.
it's like 30 seconds, and it's at the microphone, yes.
I do want to say something. I think to Nathan's point, we don't necessarily have to say that they have to have a 4-story building in all phases with that height. They could use the pitched roof in all phases, but they don't necessarily have to have a 4-story building in all phases. So if we make the maximum height applicable to this phase only, it prevents this from the other phases without us being able to consider them on a case by case.
Thank you, and I apologize for interrupting. I know you're going through your usual course there. I just wanted to maybe throw out an option to see if it helped any, and that the flat roof or the gabled roof is important to us, and we want to help advocate that. And if you're liking, obviously the crane board's kind of behind us, and maybe we can put that behind us and go back to a panelized upper floor, but still do the gable. So if you're liking the panelized, that's hardy panel that was showing in those upper floors, maybe that 3rd floor can still be hardy panel, but we can still do the gable, and it's kind of a hybrid there of you're still getting that 4th floor material that you're looking for, but we're also getting the gable that we're needing. Just a thought anyways.
I guess for me, it's not whether it's a pitched roof or a flat roof, that's irrelevant. That's subject to design. It's the height. I know, you mentioned it's only 8 feet. Yeah, it's only 8 feet. I mean, I felt like we made that allowance when we went from the 3 floors to the 4 floors and kind of left that 45-foot mark as the boundary. Now we have the 45, the 4 floors. Now we have a pitched roof. So I just think it just keeps growing and growing. I guess that's the reason for my discussion.
Any other discussion with regard to the motion that we would not allow the increase from 45 to 50? Or any other amendments to the motion? Okay, ready for a vote? Okay, so again, the motion is to deny the increase, this is the recommendation to deny the increase in the mobile building height from 45 to 53. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Abstain. Okay.
Sorry. We're gonna do
Voice
a
vote?
roll call vote. then.
Go right ahead, roll caller.
Okay. Let's wait.
Aye.
Mr. Snyder.
Aye.
So just to clarify momentarily, so the motion is to deny, which means that we are, if yay, we agree with that motion, deny. A nay is that you disagree with the motion as stated. Yeah, did I do that right? All right. I saw you observing, like, is she gonna get this? You were like,
Oh, no,
no.
I would never question.
Okay.
All right.
Meyer.
No. Nay, I meant nay.
Ms. Willard,
Yes.
Ms. Hoffa,
Yes.
Ms. Stanfield.
I'm agreeing with the motion to deny it.
And Mr. Stivine. Nay. Okay, so the motion passes.
Okay, so what do we do now, Adam, with the second part, which is the modification? Anything at this point?
For the elevations,
No, it would be the modifications to site elevation and landscaping. Would you like to place a hold on that for now?
yeah,
Can't
see
see that.
here.
Can't go to 40. Can't go to 53, so that just kills that one.
The only thing we could do is the landscape plan.
So you could do site plan and landscape with the stipulation of the detention basin.
Understood, okay.
Shows.
You want to bring up your recommendation?
Yeah.
There's two pieces, it's the PUD
Okay.
and it's the site plan. So what we have is we have two big motions ahead of us. One is amending the PUD, and then all the site plans associated with that have designs. So for those items that we approved, we can now consider approving also the corresponding site or other plans. That's what we're looking at now. So based upon our recommended votes thus far, we can stand in the shoes of the design committee, is that right, Adam? And say the ones that we could approve would be the site plan and concept landscape plan with your staff recommendation and detail will be developed. Anybody would like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the concept landscape plan as submitted with the condition, one, that the landscape plan be developed.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Do we want to do anything with the site plan?
Yes, I would recommend taking action on it one way or the other.
Okay, site plan, you would like to make a motion?
What did the site plan then include that we haven't voted on?
It would have been the smaller building footprint as well as the.
So
pond.
it is this one.
So we already,
I feel like we already.
it's in the PUD part.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So now we're in design for. I'm
So I'll make a
sorry.
motion to approve the site plan as submitted.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Adam, what do we do then with the third and final plan? I don't know what it's called anymore.
The elevation.
Elevations, yes. Yes.
Well,
What action do we need to take?
really none.
All right, anything else? Any other actions that we need on this?
No.
Okay. Then I think we are good to go on agenda item number 3, any board comments generally?
I want to thank everybody for showing up. I think it's unfortunate. Some of you who were for or against this project didn't show up when it was being initially considered. Whether you were for or against it, you should keep an eye on the town board's Facebook pages so you know what's going on, so you don't show up when something has been approved and we're just looking for amendments. Some of you might feel cheated, but this plan was already approved once. Now we're looking for amendments. So I just feel like some people approached this, that they were going to come in here and just the project was going to get burnt down. we've already been through all this. So some of it you may not have heard before. Some of it you may still have questions. But a lot of this was already gone through several months ago when we first looked at this project. So keep an eye on your council Facebook page or just the town Facebook page, so you know when these meetings are, and please participate, because we represent you. It's not supposed to be us deciding all this. Your inputs are critical. That's all.
Thank you. And we do note everything that you say and make sure that we are clarifying that for ourselves in the record. So thank you all for your participation today. Any other board comments? Okay, all right. Yes, okay. We can now take a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn at 8 o'clock.
Your first, the microphone today. Okay, all right.
I'll second.
Second? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for doing the right thing. We really, really appreciate it so much.
How are you?